Welcome to the second week in our series called Get Your Relationships Right. Get your relationships right. I'm glad somebody's excited. Okay, so last week we kicked off this series and we looked at the why of relationships, and we talked about how most people's relationships suck because most people suck at relationships, right? We tend to have sucky relationships because we suck at relationships. We don't know how to properly have relationships with other people. Okay? And what we learned is if we don't want to suck at relationships, if we actually want to have good relationships, then we need to know what it really means to love others. We have to know what it means to love others, okay? To become the kind of people who love God with all that we are and who love others the same way that we want to be loved. Okay? This is why God created us to have relationships. Okay? God created each one of us to have relationships. First with Him. Love must start with Him. He must be the number one in your life. And then also with others. And in the context of dating, if you don't understand this, if you don't grasp this, then your relationships will suck because you don't understand the true purpose of why you would date someone. Before you date someone, you need to understand why you would actually date someone. Okay, now last week's message, I'll admit, applied to more than just dating relationships, okay? Applied to your friendships, your family relationships, things like that, okay? Well, from here on out in this series, we're going to be focusing on romantic relationships specifically. Okay? We're going to get right into romantic relationships specifically. And we're going to talk about the importance of getting singleness right. If you don't get singleness right, you are going to get dating wrong. Let me say that again so you're listening. If you don't get singleness right, you are going to get dating wrong. Okay? So our sequence here is we said last week, loving others, how not to suck at relationships. This week, fleeing temptation, right? Getting singleness right. Next week, we're going to look at who to date. And then we're going to finish it up week 4, get into how to date. How to actually date someone. Okay, now we all want to have romantic relationships that don't suck. Okay, relationships that don't lead to loneliness. Relationships that don't lead to heartbreak. Relationships that don't lead to abuse. Relationships that don't lead to regret. And the way we get to those relationships, or the way we get those relationships right in the future, is to learn how to be faithful right now. If you want to get your relationships right in the future, you need to learn how to be faithful now, not after. Okay, so today we're going to talk about what it looks like to be faithfully single. How to honor God in your singleness. Because if you want to have a healthy dating relationship, you need to learn how to be faithfully single. If you want to have a healthy dating relationship with somebody of the opposite sex, before you can have that, you need to learn how to be faithfully single. You've got to start there. Okay, and that's why the main point for today's message is this. God's will is for you to be holy. God's will is for you to be holy. In all your relationships, okay? In how you do relationships and in your singleness. So we're going to talk about how to be holy. How to be holy. Now, holy is a word that means different. It means special. It means set apart. It means absolutely pure. Okay? And I think that what we'd all agree with is that being holy is anything but easy. It's not an easy calling that we're called to. And there's a couple of reasons why this is true. Okay, the first is that we live in a culture, you all are growing up in a culture that absolutely idolizes romance. And if we're being really honest, it's hard not to. When all the songs that we listen to and the shows and movies that we watch just sell us this idea that in order to live a fulfilled life, you need a sexually satisfying relationship right now. If you don't have that, society says, then you can't have a fulfilling life. You don't have fun. You don't have enjoyment. It's a lie. Okay, now some of you might be thinking, yeah, but that's not what I believe. But I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you because you may be thinking something like, when I'm finally married, then I'll be happy. Or when I'm finally dating someone great that treats me right, then this nagging feeling of worthlessness will finally go away. Because you've put that value into having a relationship. But there's a problem. There's a problem. And that problem is that romantic relationships, even at their very best, cannot satisfy the deepest longings of our soul. Only God can do that. My wife cannot satisfy my soul. I cannot satisfy hers. It is wrong for me to try. I am here to point her to God so that she can fully experience Him. Only He can provide that for her. So I am here to help direct her and point her to that. Because I want nothing more than her relationship with God to be the strongest it's ever been. Okay? Relationships with other people, anybody other than God, cannot satisfy you like your relationship with God is designed to. You must start there. That needs to be your first and ultimate relationship. Okay, now another reason why being faithfully single is really hard is because most people don't pursue holiness in their singleness. Most people don't actually pursue holiness in their singleness. Okay, most people don't want to do the work to be different. So they just keep doing what everybody else is doing. Nobody else around you in society does it. Why should you? It's work. It's hard. Most people don't want to do the work to be different, so you just keep jumping from relationship to relationship because having a significant other makes you feel significant. You just keep fantasizing about that person who sits with you in class, right? Because it gives your mind some kind of like pleasant escape for a little while. But there's another problem. There's another problem, and that problem is that you aren't just idolizing romance in those moments, you're actually idolizing your own desires. We think that if we want something, we need to have it to be happy. If we want something, we have to have it to be happy. Well, hello, David and Bathsheba, right? There's a great example of why that's not true. Okay, but the news I need you to hear is that chasing after your own desires is not what leads to a fulfilled life. Chasing after those things is not going to lead you to relationships that are meaningful and fulfilling and beautiful. A meaningful and beautiful relationship only comes from trusting and following Yeshua in every single area of your life. And I get it. Y'all, I get it. I know that sounds so cliche to say. Oh, just follow Yeshua. You hear that all the time. Right? But that leads me to another reason that holiness is hard. It's because sometimes holiness just doesn't seem relevant. Right? Holiness just doesn't seem relevant in society today. Nobody else does it. Why should we? It's really easy to convince yourself that you don't need to worry about being faithful right now in your singleness because somehow, when you get married, magically, all the desires that you have will just go away. And that when you stand there next to your spouse and you say, I do, you will automatically have all the things you need to be a faithful spouse to that person. But that's dumb. That's as dumb as thinking that you'll wake up one day and be the MVP of your favorite sports team. And you didn't put in a single day of practice. Or that you'll be valedictorian of your class because, you're special, but you didn't turn in a single piece of homework. If you want to be faithful in your future relationship, then you need to be faithful right now. You need to put in the work and prioritize the right things now so that you can be faithful in a future relationship. Okay, I read an example as I was getting this lesson ready this week from a blog of this lady who went to a singles group where all the women complained about how much better life would be if they were married. All of them. Okay? Well, then this lady attended another function where the women were married. And guess what all those women complained about? Yeah, life would be much better if you were single. And while that's funny, right, the issue isn't marital or relationship status. The greatest issue is one of contentment. It's of contentment. So you need to go back to the basics and understand your purpose and where other people come into that picture. And to understand your purpose, you need to look to Yeshua. He point blank got relationships right. He is the greatest example of what being faithfully single looks like. And this is what he said matters most. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commands. What Yeshua is saying is that the greatest calling of your life, the greatest calling of your life, each and every one of you, is that you would become people who can do that. That is your purpose. That is the greatest calling that you have. The greatest calling of your life is that you become people who love God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind, and you love your neighbor. You love others as yourself. You put them before yourself. All the law and the prophets, everything that God commanded, all the promises spoken by the prophets were to this end. To help you become this kind of person. Said another way, what Yeshua is saying is that the greatest calling of your life is not who you date. The greatest calling of your life is not who you marry. The greatest calling of your life is not even that you get married. The greatest calling of your life is who you become. It's who you become. God is calling you to become someone who is holy. That is His will for your life. If you are sitting here and you've been questioning what your purpose is in life, what are you called to do, what's your God-given purpose, I will 100% tell you what it is right now. Be holy. Be holy. That is every one of your purposes in life. So how do we be holy? How do we do this holiness thing? Because it's a really good question. And to discover the answer to this question, we're going to look at a passage together in the Old Covenant. Okay, and as we do, we're going to focus on three big lessons. 3 lessons about holiness. And these lessons are, number 1, when we get impatient, we get impulsive. When we get impatient, we get impulsive. Number 2, every decision we make comes with a cost. Every decision you make comes with a cost. And number 3, peer pressure is real. Peer pressure is absolutely real. So we're going to look again today in the book of Exodus. We looked at the book of Exodus last week. We're looking at it this week. And remember, the big story this book tells us is how God rescues his people from slavery in Egypt, right? He partners up with this guy named Moses, delivers the people of Israel from Pharaoh's oppression, right? There's these 10 plagues. There's applying blood to the doorposts of your house. There's walking across dry ground, right? There's all these other miracles that were all part of God's mission to rescue his people. Now, as they are journeying, as they've gotten out of Egypt, right, and they're journeying through the wilderness to get to the promised land, God continues to provide them with his presence, with food to eat, with water to drink. And as we come to this scene we're about to read, Moses goes up on a mountain to get God's laws in writing. And while he's up there with God, this is what's going down in the camp. And let's take a look at what goes on in the camp. All right, so we're in Exodus chapter 32, starting in verse 1. When the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain, they gathered around Aaron and said, "Come, make us gods who will go before us. As for this fellow Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what's happened to him." Aaron answered them, "Take off the gold earrings that your wives, your sons, and your daughters are wearing, and bring them to me." So all the people took off their earrings and brought them to Aaron. He took what they handed him and made it into an idol cast in the shape of a calf, fashioning it with a tool. Then they said, "These are your gods, Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt." When Aaron saw this, he built an altar in front of the calf and announced, "Tomorrow there will be a festival to the Lord." So the next day the people rose early and sacrificed burnt offerings and presented fellowship offerings. Afterward they sat down to eat and drink and got up to indulge in revelry. There are a lot of things going on in this passage. There are a lot of wrong things going on in this passage. Okay, the people of Israel here get a lot wrong, and so I want to look at this through the lens of those three lessons that I mentioned, okay, because I think there's a lot that we can learn from this story, from this event. And that first lesson is, when we get impatient, we get impulsive. Okay, and we see this in the very first verse of that passage from Exodus 32, right? It said, when the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down, they thought this dude was taking forever. Anybody know how long he was up on the mountain for? 7 days. No. 40 days and 40 nights is correct. Moses was up on Mount Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights. But they thought he was taking forever. Some of them probably thought that he was never coming back. So they got impulsive. They decided to take matters into their own hands. And they thought, hey, since Moses and his God aren't giving us what we want, maybe Aaron and a different God will. Okay, and I think this may be something that some of you feel. Okay, like you've been waiting on God for a really long time, and as you've waited longer than you wanted to, you have felt that same temptation to take matters into your own hands. So instead of waiting for someone who really loves God and really loves you, you're settling for a relationship with anyone who will give you a little bit of attention. If they know how to spell their name, and they shower once a month, you're like, that's the guy for me. Well, I'm here to tell you, ladies, raise the bar, please, if that's you. All right? Showering once a month and spelling their name is not enough. Raise that bar a lot, and if you need help raising it, I will help you. That bar needs to be much higher, okay? No bueno. Okay? When we get impatient, though, we all do this. When we get impatient, we get impulsive. We make quick and rash decisions because we don't want to wait any longer. But there's another problem, and that problem is that every decision you make comes with a cost. And that's lesson number 2. Every decision comes with a cost. In this story, the cost associated with the Israelites was literally their gold. Aaron said, hey, give me your gold. I'll make it into an idol, a calf, a fake god, and we can worship it. It didn't matter that they'd seen the real God and all the miracles that he performed to bring them out of Egypt, to rescue them, to make himself known to them. And your decisions come with a cost too. Being faithful to Yeshua and faithfully single has a cost. You'll probably go on less dates. You'll probably have less boyfriends and girlfriends. You'll probably get invited to less parties. Hopefully you're listening to less explicit music and watching less raunchy shows. But the cost is so much more than worth it because Yeshua gives us back so much more than we ever give up for him. If you wait for the Lord, it is always, always, always worth it every single time. But there's a cost to doing relationships the same way that everybody else around you does. There's a cost to them as well, and the cost is significantly higher, and the pain lasts longer than you can imagine and that they even realize. The cost of doing relationships, just like everyone else, is your integrity. You lose your integrity. And believe me when I say, your integrity is of high value. Don't give it up. Don't let go of it. The cost is real intimacy and honesty in your relationships. The cost is your mental and emotional well-being. These costs are way too high for you to just give up on a whim because other people do it. Hold on to your integrity. Don't ever let go of it or give it up. It will cost you real joy and satisfaction when you try to do relationships the same way that everybody else does. It will cost you the very thing that you're actually chasing after, because the thing about idols is they always promise more than they actually deliver. Idols will never deliver everything that they promise you for. But the good news is that God always delivers on his promises. God always delivers on his promises. And that leads us to our final lesson here, that peer pressure is real. And you don't need me to tell you that peer pressure is real. You all know that this is true. But in this story from Exodus, we see this played out in pretty dramatic fashion. Because in the span of a day, Aaron and the people go from waiting on God to building an idol to worshiping this thing that they made with their own hands, and then professing out loud that this golden calf is the thing that brought them out of Egypt. Are you kidding? It's insane. Aaron does a complete 180 from being the guy that Moses appointed to help the people stay faithful while he was away to becoming the guy who literally makes a false god with his own hands and tools and then permits the people of Israel to worship it. How? How did he do that? How did that happen? Peer pressure. Peer pressure. Pressure from a bunch of people who were complaining because they were impatient. And so just like the people of Israel, Aaron made an impulsive decision. He crumbled under peer pressure. And Aaron would even make this same mistake again, along with Moses, when they decided to strike a rock rather than obey God's instructions to speak to it. Both he and Moses decided shortly after this to strike a rock rather than speak to it as God instructed. And that decision for them came with a cost. Anybody know what that cost was? Yeah. They were not allowed to enter the promised land. You disobey God, there are consequences. There are consequences to every choice you make. The consequence for both Moses and Aaron to not enter the promised land is tragic. It's tragic. Okay, we've seen a lot of what not to do, but I want to zip ahead to the new covenant now to learn what we can do. What can we do to become holy as God has called all of us to become? So let's take a look at what Paul tells us in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verses 3 through 5 here. It says, God's will is for you. I told you. Didn't I tell you all this? God's will is for you to be holy. So stay away from all sexual sin. Then each of you will control his or her own body and live in holiness and honor, not in lustful passion like the pagans who do not know God and his ways. Did you catch it? God's will for you is to be holy. So stay away from all sexual sin. To become someone who is able to control your own body and its desires, that's what your goal should be. Now, some of you may be thinking, it's a little uncomfortable to think about God having, something to say about your sexuality or what you do with that area in your life. And if that's the case, I want you to really hear this next part. God cares about your sexuality because God cares about you. God cares about your sexuality because God cares about you. He so desperately longs for you to live free from the pain and the shame and the trauma that sexual sin always, always, always brings with it. God's will for you is to turn away from that and to be holy. Abstain, control your own bodies, control your desires, be in charge of yourself. Be holy. But how do you do this? How do you actually get free from sexual temptation? You run from what's bad and you chase after what's good. You run from what's bad and you chase after what's good. But what does that look like in practice? What does that actually look like in practice? It looks like fleeing sexual sin and running to God and His people. Okay, fleeing sexual sin, running to God and His people. The times when we are most vulnerable, I think anyway, are the times when we're tired, when we're bored, when we're lonely. So when you are tired, flee the temptation to just mindlessly scroll on your phone on apps that make it really easy for you to objectify other people. Because I will tell you, that is what you are doing. You are objectifying other people. Flee the temptation of watching shows that give you a false view of what romance looks like and feels like. Instead, run to God. When you're tired, listen to an audio recording of the Bible. Listen to worship music. Or go to sleep if you're tired. Right? Go to sleep. It's a whole lot harder to make decisions that you'll regret later if you are literally asleep. Let's be honest, right? Run from what's bad and chase after what's good. Run from what's bad and chase after what's good. When you are bored, don't read books that have graphic content in them. Don't watch shows that stimulate your lust. Run to God and His people. Intentionally fill your time with good things that honor God. Don't leave yourself with open time to just do whatever you want. Plan things out for your days when you're serving others. Serve your family. Start a devotional with some of your friends in here. Meet up with them on the phone. You're all about to get into summer holiday, right? You're going to have wide open schedules. Fill those schedules with God-honoring things. Things that will encourage you to grow, things that will equip you to overcome trials and tribulations, things that will empower you to be holy because you are called to it. Run from what's bad and chase after what is good. Run from it. Don't walk. Don't meander. Don't ponder. Run from that which is bad. And when you're lonely, flee from the lie that tells you the only way to get romantic attention is by stepping outside of God's will for you to be holy. Do not believe that lie. It is a lie to think that the only way to get romantic attention is to step outside of God's will for you. Flee from the lie that tells you you're better off retreating into isolation and shame, and instead run to God and His people. Confess the lies, the screw-ups, the sinful thoughts that you have out loud to God and to a close friend or two. Share your struggles with people who truly love you because they want you to become the person that God has created you to be. Hiding these things in the dark is what leads to shame. Don't hide them. What leads to freedom is when you step into the light and you experience your shame being replaced by God's grace. That is freedom. You will experience the incredible power of God when you are full of shame and you decide to step out of that and instead receive His grace and forgiveness. You don't deserve it, but He offers it freely because He paid that price. So I challenge each of you, do that and experience the incredible power of God's grace. This is what He wants for you. This is the life that He died for you to have. This is the life that He died for you to have. Because the greatest calling of your life is not who you date. The greatest calling of your life is not who you marry. The greatest calling of your life is not even that you get married. The greatest calling of your life is who you become. So get your singleness right before you get your dating wrong. Let's pray. Avinu, we love you and we thank you, Lord, for this day and for this time. Lord, I pray for each person here, each soul here, that you would draw them to you, Father, that they would know the incredible forgiveness and grace and mercy that you extend to them. Help all of us, O Lord, to not just be impatient and make impulsive decisions. Help these teens to wait on you, to seek you and find you, to care about you, to put you first in their lives, to love you more than anyone else, to care about you more than anyone else. And use that, Lord, to transform their love for others, that they might truly live out their calling, that we all have to be holy, for you are holy. You have called us to be like you. You have called us to build your kingdom here on this earth. Empower them, I pray, Lord. And for those who don't know you, break their hearts. Break down the walls that are so hardened inside, that they might instead confess and ask for your forgiveness and ask for your grace and receive it because of your incredible love. Oh Lord, make it so that they don't continue to wait on that. Thank you for this time. Thank you for the chance to talk about things like dating and the priorities of putting you first and loving others and fleeing temptation. Help these teens, Lord, to get their singleness right so that they can get future relationships that you already have planned for them right. In the mighty name of Yeshua, we pray. Amen. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. And may the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Listen, y'all. Don't walk out of here feeling guilty or with shame or regret. Come and talk to me or someone in my team, and we'll help you see how much mercy and love God has. We all make mistakes. When we're talking about dating and relationships, we can make some pretty serious ones. If you have, you are forgiven. You are not beyond the outstretched arm of God. He cares about you. He loves you more than you can understand. So if you want time to pray with one of us, and come talk to us. But grow in grace and peace.